Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. This week I am showcasing a team with another one of my favorites, this time Nidoqueen. Now, unfortunately, Nidoqueen is usually considered a slightly worse version of Nidoking, who is in turn considered a significantly worse version of Landorus incarnate form. They all have the Sheer Force ability, which pairs very nicely with Life Orb, and it boosts their power to crazy levels. You get the multipliers from both, and don't take the recoil from Life Orb. But Landorus is faster and stronger than both of the Nidos, and Nidoking is faster and stronger than Nidoqueen. So I thought about that for a second, and I realized the answer to this problem was Trick Room, of course. Nidoqueen is the slowest of the three Mons I just mentioned, and she has the most bulk, so she'll fit perfectly into a Trick Room team. And even though she's slightly weaker than Nidoking, it's really the abilities that lend the power here, and she does fantastic damage. On top of that, she has more coverage than Landorus, which means we can slot in the move Ice Beam while also enjoying Stab on our Sludge Bomb. This moveset means she covers a ton of meta choices. That includes Zacian, Incineroar, Rillaboom, Regieleki, Stakataka, Landorus, Tornado, Serena. Honestly, the list continues to go on. I just chose to stop there. And finally, I EV'd her to always live a Behemoth Blade from the most popular Zacian spread while OHKOing back with her Earth Power. Now, for the rest of the team, I decided on Lunala as my restricted for a Trick Room team, because Calyrex Ice Rider was redundant with Nidoqueen's coverage, and I'm not really a huge fan of Palkia's low accuracy moves, but it would have worked here as well, too. It's something to consider because one of Palkia's only weaknesses is Fairy, which Nidoqueen can cover, but neither here nor there. Now, Lunala has enough HP and physical defense to take a Wicked Blow from an unboosted Urshifu, which is absolutely nuts when you think about it, because Urshifu has that crazy base 130 attack, it has Stab, it has a critical hit on that move, and Lunala is 4 times weak and it can still take it. So, you know, amazing bulk, and then it also hits a modest special attack breakpoint, and a high one at that, I believe 180 EVs. We're running Power Herb to pick up Okos on those pesky Incineroars that would normally wall us with our Ghost type coverage. Goggle Stakataka is here to be our primary Xerneas answer, as well as a second Trick Room setter. But this time I chose to go with a fully defensive set rather than the Lonely variant, because this team lacks fighting coverage. So Body Press is very nice here, getting the +1 to defense and getting stronger Body Presses is even nicer. We also have our standard Assault Vest Rillaboom to help with the Kyogre matchup, and to provide Fake Out to help get Trick Room up. It's one of the faster Mons on this team, but having a fast Fake Out is very nice when you want to guarantee your Trick Room goes up. Against something that might taunt you, for example. Then I chose Focus Sash and DD because it's boring, but it is probably one of the safest ways to get Trick Room up outside of spread damage or imprison. And it also has a cheeky Shadow Ball coverage to account for Calyrex Shadow. We're immune to its Astral Barrage, and Shadow Ball is 4 times effective. It can pick up some games that your opponent doesn't see coming. And finally, we round out the team with a bulky Rocky Helmet Zapdos. That helps with our Kyogre and Zacian matchups, and it also provides a switch-in for ground attacks, which Stakataka and Nidoqueen do not appreciate. Anyway, that's the team, so let's show off some games with Nidoqueen. Okay, so for our first opponent, haven't played on ladder in a while, looks like they have a Zacian team, but this is not standard, and they've actually got a Nidoking, so we get to have a King versus Queen battle. Should be pretty cool. Couldn't really ask for anything better there. So it looks like they do have a fast mode with that Whimsicott Tailwind, and, you know, Zacian, Hydreigon, and Nidoking on that side. But then they've also got a slow mode with Chandelure for Trick Room and Torkoal, which is a little scary. Despite that slow mode, I think we still want to give ourselves the option to set up Trick Room, since Lunala can tank most things with its ability, and it has Meteor Beam for Torkoal and Chandelure. We'll lead with that, and when in doubt, Indeedee is usually a really solid partner in case they lead with Hyper Offense that can just 2-hit KO Lunala. We can just follow me Trick Room. It's, you know, you're sacking him on, it's not the best, and it's kind of predictable, but it is always an option. We'll bring Nidoqueen in the back since it has coverage for literally my opponent's entire team, which, you know, fantastic, and it's the reason we're bringing it in the team in the first place. And then we'll round it up with Zapdos just as a solid Zacian switch-in, and yeah, it's just a nice tanky defensive mon. It doesn't have anything that it just hard counters apart from walling, but when nothing else fits in typing-wise, it's a strong way to go. Okay, let's see how Elijah leads here. Okay, and it looks like they're going as aggressively as they physically can with a Nidoking and Zacian lead. with our Lunala and Indeedee, we definitely want the Trick Room up, but the question here is whether we should be safe with Follow Me or aggressive with Expanding Force. Follow Me Trick Room just seems really obvious here, and the reward of Expanding Force is just really high because it's super effective in a Nidoking, and Nidoking has terrible defenses, so even off of something like Indeedee with the terrain, we should get the Oko here. So, and then plus Shadow Shield should keep us safe from the faster Zacian, who's still the bigger threat, so we can take the risk here and go for Trick Room Expanding Force, and in fact they might even switch out. We'll have to see on that one. They can also go for sub. That's a tactic I like to take against Trick Room a lot when I'm running fast restricted like Zacian or Calyrex, but it looks like they're just attacking straight up and into Lunala, so this risk may or may not have been worth it depending on what they do with Nidoking, but look at how powerful Shadow Shield is. Like, that is a +1 Behemoth Blade, and it didn't even do half. And we take the Earth Power too. Lunala is just so tanky. We got our Expanding Force off. That's an easy Oko and a Nidoking, so I guess we don't get to have our King v Queen showdown after all. But it's still a nice bit of chip into Zacian as well. And we get our Trick Room up. So I'd say as turn ones go, we're doing great so far. So we'll see what my opponent brings in next, and it's the Torkoal. Okay, so that's actually very smart, and you know, this is their Trick Room answer basically, right? Like, now they have the ability to just launch full eruptions into us, but we have Wide Guard as the thing, and we haven't shown it yet. So we can do that and another Expanding Force. Torkoals tend to have bad special defense, so assuming our opponent doesn't read into this, should be a great way to put some chip into that Torkoal, lower the power of its eruptions going forward. Okay, so our Wide Guard comes out, of course. Now we need to hope for that eruption and hope our opponent doesn't read it, and they don't. Great eruption, so their Torkoal speed control is useless, and Expanding Force should do some solid damage into both now. That is not as much as I expected in a Torkoal. That thing actually has to be specially invested. I have had this exact interaction before while practicing on Showdown, and it usually does a lot more. Zacian brings Indeedee down to Sash, which is a bit annoying. Yeah, it's fine though. So now we enter the mind games of Eruption versus Wide Guard. We're going to make the read that Torkoal is scared away from its Eruption and fire a Meteor Beam into it, and then we'll redirect whatever single target move that we're reading into our 1 HP Indeedee. If we call this wrong, then it's a double KO for our opponent, but I think it's the play. You do enter a lot of mind games with Wide Guard, which is why I don't really like it for like serious tournament teams, but it's fantastic for ladder with how widespread spread moves are in this meta. And they just withdraw Torkoal, so for Hydreigon. Okay, not the best. I would have liked to just kill it with a Meteor Beam, but I doubt Hydreigon's going to appreciate it either. Indeedee uses Follow Me, so also great because it means that the only damage Zacian will be doing will be giving us a free switch in. And Meteor Beam gives us the +1. Now I'd really like it to connect. And it does. Great. Awesome. So let's see how much this does into Hydreigon, which I don't think is particularly tanky. Now, we do, what, 75% or so? And Behemoth Blade is just going to do a single HP of damage into our Indeedee and give us the free switch in into Nidoqueen. I don't know for a fact that Ice Beam would have OHKO'd Hydreigon, but in this range it absolutely will. Okay, so now it's Nidoqueen's turn to actually do something here. I checked the Trick Room turns and see that we still have 2 left, and that's great because they can only protect for 1 of those. I don't know if Hydreigon is in range for a +1 Moongeist Beam since it resists, but Zacian definitely should be. And that leaves Nidoqueen to kill with a Sludge Bomb into Hydreigon. I could have done Ice Beam, but this respects the possibility of a Torkoal switch in. They could do, although I doubt they'd want to take that damage. Alright, Zacian protects, that's fine, no switch also, but should be okay because I'm pretty sure Sludge Bomb should still pick up this KO easily. Yeah, okay, great. So that was absolutely the right play into that slot. Whether the switch happened or not, we do very well there. And Moongeist Beam hits the protect. Alright, so out comes their Torkoal again. Since their Zacian just protected, we should have an easy kill into it, barring a double protect. Unfortunately, Torkoal could potentially KO either of my Mons with its speed control under my own Trick Room, so we are going to have to risk that with a double into Zacian. Moongeist Beam and Earth Power both into Zacian. At least one of them should pick up the kill. And then after that, Zapdos and the survivor of whoever Torkoal attacks can go on cleanup duty. This assumes that they don't go for Eruption because they fear Wide Guard, but also that even if they do, I'm pretty sure that at least Lunala should tank that. And they go for Solar Beam. Bizarrely, that's a cute bit of coverage on Torkoal, but I don't think it's worth it unless you have actual super effective damage. And they do it into Nidoqueen, and that's fine, except our poison typing means that it's a neutral hit, and even if it was super effective, we would have survived that. So Earth Power goes off into Zacian. This is why we keep Nidoqueen around. She gets another KO and takes out their restricted. And that leaves Lunala free to finish up the game with that awesome-looking Moongeist Beam animation. A +1 that easily should take out a Torkoal. And yeah, good game to my opponent Elijah, and we'll move on to the next game. Okay, so the next team that we're up against also features a fast mode and a slow mode, including Torkoal, which it was a bit of a menace for us last time, but Wide Guard can hopefully keep us safe. Palkia is also an iffy matchup for this team, just because we don't have any Dragon or Fairy coverage. So we'll have to gain speed control and just smack it really hard with neutral damage. Nidoqueen does match up well into this team though, since we have super effective damage into Sylveon, Torkoal, Lele, and Stakataka. On top of that, On top of that, Kartana's special defense is absolutely terrible, so even though we only have neutral damage, a stab Earth Power should probably be enough to take that out. I decide to lead with her and Zapdos. Reason for that, there's no particularly great synergy between the two, but Zapdos is just bulky enough to tank a hit from pretty much anything on my opponent's team, including their restricted, and then heal it back up with Roost. So we have the ability to tank and do some damage should we need to pivot Nidoqueen out, if she's just losing the speed control war against something. Palkia in particular is a little scary. After that, we always, not always, but pretty much always need to bring our restricted in the back, so Lunala comes in third. And then finally, I'll round out our 4 with Stakataka. This game looks like it's going to revolve pretty heavily around whether Trick Room is up or not. Both of us have the ability to set it, and they have fast Mons to position if they can unset it. So the idea being that having a second setter is just absolutely fantastic. And then, you know, body press into their stack, all kinds of things. Like the coverage on it is still pretty decent too. So my opponent leads with Palkia and Stakataka. Okay, wasn't sure what Mura was. After going on the field, Palkia's pressure is shown, right? So that means that there won't be any telepathy shenanigans coming in our way. We can get an easy Thunderbolt off into Palkia. And then I considered attacking with Nidoqueen, but Palkia is definitely faster due to its base speed being higher and our Nidoqueen being min speed. So nothing here really wants to take a Hydro Pump from that Palkia, so I decide to just go for a Protect on Nidoqueen. In hopes that they set up Trick Room for us, because for the same reason, if they do set up Trick Room for us, presumably with Stack, then Nidoqueen can do big damage into that Palkia. But they decide to swap out Stack, and I guess that's fair enough. They bring out their Sylveon, which we absolutely don't mind with our stab Sludge Bomb. But yeah, if their Hydro Pump misses, for example, then Earth Power into Stack would have killed, so I guess that switch makes sense. Thunderbolt does a good bit of chip into Palkia, although it's very bulky and Zapdos isn't that invested, and the Trick Room goes up, so, you know, thank you. So now we could take out Sylveon with that Poison Stab, but we already have Stakataka in the back for Sylveon. So doubling into Palkia actually seems like the best play. I opt for Earth Power over Sludge Bomb because they have the same base power, and a potential special defense drop would benefit Zapdos' attack. Plus it accounts for a potential switch into Stakataka, whereas Sludge Bomb would be useless. Nidoqueen goes first to confirm she's the slowest thing on the field, and Earth Power does a nice chunk into Palkia, so that brings it into what we now know is Thunderbolt range. Sylveon goes next with Hyper Voice, which does a solid chunk into Nidoqueen despite its resistance, and it procs their Throat Spate. Their Hydro Pump misses though, and that's a huge bit of luck on our part. It's a bit annoying that Zapdos is actually faster. I may want to make it quiet in the future, or not quiet, just I might want to make it min speed in the future to account for specifically this matchup. I believe they both have base 100 speeds. Scary part though, just like last game, my opponent now brings out their Torkoal under Trick Room. There are still 3 turns left, so they can now safely spam Eruption and Hyper Voice, and nothing on our team can really take that double in. The good news, though, is that we have Wide Guard on our Lunala in the back. So what we can do here is protect one of our Mons while sacking the other and get that free switch in to allow us to Wide Guard on the following turn. Zapdos' damage output is kind of mediocre at this point, and its bulk doesn't really matter into this kind of double in from them. So we can sack Zapdos and keep Nidoqueen alive, take advantage of that gift we got in the Hydro Pump missing. And Nidoqueen has great coverage into both Torkoal and Sylveon, so whichever one we need to get rid of at the time, we'll be able to do that, assuming that they take the bait for our Wide Guard. Eruption comes out, and Zapdos actually lives that even at the with the chip it had taken, which is pretty crazy, honestly. But you know, it's not going to survive the second Hyper Voice, especially because it's at +1. So yeah, Zapdos goes down as planned. We really wanted that because if they had both lived, if we had just double protected, you know, we'd just be in the same scenario the next turn, 2 more turns of Trick Room. So yeah, it should be noted that I'm going to be taking a big risk with this Wide Guard play, since if they read it, they can just Earth Power in an Nidoqueen, and if we were feeling less ballsy, we could depend on Shadow Shield and Meteor Beam Torkoal. But I don't think they can resist the temptation of a double KO. So we'll target Torkoal with the Earth Power and go for Wide Guard. Wide Guard comes out, and they do go for Eruption, so that is fantastic. That's a great read. And we should go next under Trick Room. So yes, Earth Power will go into Torkoal, and that is their primary Trick Room attacker down. If nothing else, Stakataka can deal with the Sylveon. And Hyper Voice, great. So Wide Guard did amazing work that turn. They went for double spread. They effectively wasted their turn and lost their Torkoal in the process. So we'll see who they bring out next. It is that Stakataka. This turn's a bit interesting, actually. There should be one more turn of Trick Room now, and our Shadow Shield is still intact. Honestly, in retrospect, I think the best move here would be to double the Stakataka, but I opted to protect Nidoqueen on this turn, and I just end up depending on Shadow Shield on Lunala to chip the Sylveon. Reason for that being that if I can survive this last turn of Trick Room, then there's nothing Sylveon can do to kill Nidoqueen with its speed control, and we can just Earth Power the Stakataka the following turn. Now we protect, and they go for Rock Slide, which is actually a strange move because they know we have Wide Guard, but, you know, again, it is all mind game at this point. They could assume that we're not going to go for it again. And they go for Mystical Fire into the Nidoqueen slot, so it's actually great. They have +1 and Sun, so had we flinched, like Lunala just did, then we'd be in a really rough spot since Sylveon's now faster than us. But now the speed control order is Lunala, Sylveon, Nidoqueen, Stakataka, so Nidoqueen should be able to tank anything from Sylveon, and even at -1, Earth Power should Oko stack. So splitting our damage here, like we just did, was definitely the right play. It's kind of interesting what I should be doing with Lunala. Sylveon has an absolutely massive special attack stats. You could make the argument that I should have doubled in to stack. The real answer is that we're just in a very dominant position right now, so you don't need a huge read at this point. As long as we can take out Stakataka in some form, our stack in the background in the back right now should be able to clean up the game. Moongeist Beam comes out. I could have gone for Meteor Beam. I don't know if that was actually the play. Looks like it's a 3-hit KO. Their Mystical Fire comes in, that's +1 and the Sun, but Nidoqueen does just about take it, so that's great. Had we taken another one the previous turn after a flinch, that would have been terrible, though. So our -1 Earth Power still takes out Stakataka. It's just the Sheer Force plus Life Orb is absolutely nuts, especially when you add Stab in there. So at this point, we've absolutely won the game, but we'll play it optimally. We'll Moongeist Beam and protect Nidoqueen. We know Moongeist Beam is a 3-hit KO, and we can keep Nidoqueen alive. Really, there's a number of ways we could do this, and again, we could literally sack these two and just allow Stakataka in the back to deal with it. But yeah, Moongeist Beam brings them down to the red. They use a Hyper Voice, which Nidoqueen protects from, and Lunala, it still hurts, +1 in stab and everything, but Lunala still tanks it like a champ. Now the sun is gone, and there's no reason not to just double attack at this point. Lunala will go first and finish up the game. Oh, and they have quick attack. That's actually kind of cute. They get a bit of chip in the Nidoqueen, but type resistance, and they're going off their physical attacks, so I think it's an interesting move. It might be just meant for Dark Urshifu or something like that. Get to see this Moongeist Beam animation one more time, and we take the game with a crit that really didn't matter. So yeah, good game to my opponent. Okay, so this time it looks like we're up into a very hard Trick Room team, but with Kyogre, so that's very interesting. I have seen this around a lot. It has gained more popularity recently over the more standard Tailwind Kyogre. We should expect a Kyogre that opts for things like Origin Pulse, Scald, and even Calm Mind over the standard Water Spout spam, because it's just not guaranteed to have the speed control the way that Tornadus might grant that, for example. Amoonguss is also very scary on Kyogre teams because our goggles are on Stakataka, which of course absolutely hates Kyogre's crazy water special power. We should note that they don't have Intimidate though, so leading Rillaboom feels really strong to handle both Kyogre and be immune to the Shroom Spore. Nidoqueen can also be in our lead because for once it's actually going to be faster than most of our opponent's team. Lunala has to come in the back, of course, and then for our fourth it's a toss-up between Stakataka and Zapdos. You know, Goggles and Trick Room versus type advantage into Kyogre. But ultimately, we go with Zapdos just for its ability to stall out TR with its bulk and its type advantage into Kyogre. Yeah, so we'll just have to see how our opponent leads and play this one by ear. Trick Room can be a very interesting matchup because I would say that we are a Trick Room team for sure. Like nothing on here is particularly fast, but we're not hard Trick Room in that. Apart from Stakataka, most of the stuff is still middling speed tier. And really, like, Rillaboom, Zapdos, and Lunala are all low 100s in their speed. So they're, like, against a Trick Room team, we become the fast team. Alright, so my opponent leads Amoonguss and Oranguru for a standard redirection Trick Room setup. It's kind of a rough position here because Rillaboom is actually immune to the Rage Powder. I do end up doubling into Oranguru in an attempt to stop Trick Room, especially since my opponent could get greedy and protect Amoonguss. But we do choose Ice Beam in case they go for redirection. Now, in retrospect, I do think that this selection was a mistake. The Ice Beam was smart, but really I should have just doubled into the Shroom. And the reason for that is that even though because Rillaboom's grass typing gives it immunity to Rage Powder, our damage is going to be split here, which is actually a bad thing for us. Woodhammer does over 50% into the Oranguru, and our Ice Beam off of Nidoqueen should also do well over 50%. But we don't pick up a KO on either Mon. And what's worse here is that now the Amoonguss is going to have absolute speed control to put Nidoqueen or whatever we switch into that slot to sleep. And we didn't bring our Goggle Stakataka, so, you know, part of me very much wishes we had that. So going into this next turn, the name of the game is just going to be stalling out Trick Room. I decide to go for a Woodhammer into the Amoonguss slot while I protect my Nidoqueen, and the hope for that is that we can get Amoonguss into range of a Grassy Glide to pick it up with priority and not let anything go to sleep. Problem with this, well, first of all, it's that I forgot that Woodhammer is is 4 times resisted by Amoonguss, not 2 times. And because of that, U-turn being neutral would actually have been more damage than this Woodhammer. So first off, I should have done that, but second off, even with that little bit of extra damage from U-turn, Amoonguss is very tanky and almost certainly would take that too. We'll see how much damage it does though. And they bring out their Torkoal, which again, very scary. Just because in Trick Room they get to spam that big widespread eruption. Spore goes into Nidoqueen as predicted, but this Woodhammer, even in the terrain, even with stab, not very much. U-turn would have been done a bit more. I did this calc, and I think it's about 5%. Like if that did 16% or so, then U-turn would do 20%. But I don't think that puts us in Grassy Glide range either, unfortunately. And now we have to deal with this Torkoal too. we have to make the hard decisions, and I think with this one, we have to sack something, right? And Rillaboom is our main win con against Kyogre teams, especially ones without Serena or Intimidate. So we can't let it die to an Eruption. Unfortunately, we have to sacrifice our poster child here and allow Nidoqueen to go down, and then swap Boom out for Zapdos, who should definitely survive an Eruption. That will set us up for Boom to come back out and stall out their Trick Room with Fake Out. We could also potentially bring Lunala out for Wide Guard, depending on the situation, depending whether we think they're going to go for another Eruption. Does seem like it would be the case. Now, that Eruption comes out and it hurts like hell, and Nidoqueen gets put to sleep. But Nidoqueen does survive, and I'd like to point out that a Speedy Landorus Incarnate would not have survived that because it can't afford to invest its EVs in HP like our Nidoqueen has. So it's actually great because it means we get to stall out Trick Room for yet another turn. We can just use Detect on the Zapdos to stay alive, and we will sack Nidoqueen. We really don't have a choice. It's at very low HP, it's asleep, it's not going to survive long enough to wake up, so its best use at this point is to just allow itself to go down and eat up another turn of Trick Room. But, like I said, this, even when it's not being quite as flashy this game, where it doesn't pick up the kills, just did a good chunk of damage into Amoonguss, the fact that it does survive these attacks is a very real benefit to using this. When you run Trick Room, you inherently get to have more bulk because you're not investing in speed. So in this case, it allowed us to actually stall out our opponent's Trick Room. So yeah, the turn goes as predicted. Zapdos is still alive, and Lunala gets to come out. I do end up choosing Lunala. The reason for that being that like Fake Out would allow us to stall, but it only allows us to stop one target, and both Amoonguss and Torkoal are very threatening here. Also, Lunala is A, possible to Spore, but B, it's a way juicier target than Zapdos. You always want to put your opponents restricted to sleep. But Zapdos is actually our condition to taking out Amoonguss here, because it'll have a sun-boosted Heat Wave. So what we can do is go for Heat Wave and go for a Wide Guard with Lunala. Now, of course, we are depending on our opponent going for an Eruption with Torkoal and a Spore into Lunala and our Heat Wave hitting, so, you know, depending on a read and some RNG. But they do go for the Eruption, so that's a great start, and Spore goes into Lunala. Amazing. So now we'll get our sun-boosted Heat Wave off. Even Torkoal shouldn't appreciate that, because even though it resists it, it will be into its mediocre special defense. It does double connect, it looks like, but the Shroom had an Aqua Berry, so that's very annoying, and it just barely survived. So, I mean, it's hard to call that luck because my opponent did account for it. They could have known, but all the same, not very fortunate on our part. So the good news here, though, is that Trick Room is now over, but the bad news is that our Restricted is asleep, and Zapdos is too defensively invested to Oko Torkoal. I decide to read that there's no way they don't protect or switch Amoonguss, and I go for a Roost on Zapdos to get our health back. Unfortunately, I used Wide Guard last turn, so that had priority, so even in Trick Room, I haven't taken any sleep turns yet, but we need to burn those down, and Lunala is tanky enough that we actually can, or hopefully can. Bizarrely, they go for Rage Powder, though. I guess they just wanted to attack one more time with Torkoal. So I totally could have used Heat Wave again and killed, but that's the risk with making a read. Roost will heal us back up quite a bit, and then Eruption will, assuming they go for Eruption, yeah, will send us right back down. So that makes this turn a wash, but it's not really the worst because it means that we've burned a turn of Lunala's sleep for free. And on top of that, the sun is gone now, which is really nice for us. This turn is similar to the last one, but we're in a better situation because there's no sun, and Lunala is closer to waking up. I decide to Roost again, and I try to Moongeist Beam into the Amoonguss slot, in hopes of a one-turn wake-up. I do consider a Meteor Beam into Torkoal. That would have been a very nice Oko as well, but, you know, you're depending on a one-turn sleep here, and I'd really like to not allow Zapdos to go to sleep, if at all possible. And they end up withdrawing Torkoal, so that kind of makes sense, I think, because they'd want their weather setup back, and they also bring out their Oranguru, so they clearly want to get Trick Room up. Zapdos roosts back up, and we do get the one-turn wake. That's fantastic. So Lunala gets to put this Moongeist Beam into the Amoonguss and take it down from its very low health. So we don't have to deal with any more sleep. None of our Pokemon are asleep right now. And against this hard Trick Room team, Trick Room is not currently up. All we had to do was sack Nidoqueen, which I think was absolutely worth it. We're now, I'd say, in a very solid position just because we have the speed control. So my opponent does bring out the Kyogre, and since we're fighting a Trick Room team, we can assume that we have speed control due to the base speeds of everything out right now. Because I haven't burned the Power Herb yet, we can safely use Thunderbolt into Kyogre and Meteor Beam into Oranguru to prevent full power Water Spouts or Trick Room from going up. We are depending on the 90% accuracy of Meteor Beam. We unfortunately can't bank on Moongeist Beam killing because Oranguru is normal Psychic, so it's immune to our Ghost-type attack. Looks like we do have that speed control. Thunderbolt brings Kyogre under half, so great. I kind of expect not a Water Spout here just because it's on a slow team, but you never know. Meteor Beam charges us up, and we really have to bank on a hit here, because if it misses, we're allowing them to get Trick Room up. But it hits, so great. There's absolutely no way an Oranguru takes this at 50%, and it doesn't. So we have now prevented Trick Room from going up for the rest of the game. And they do go for Water Spout. Really surprising, honestly. I feel like a Kyogre in this situation should at least go for Origin Pulse. Really, they should go for Scald, because Lunala does carry Wide Guard frequently, and we've shown it, but we'll always take the half Power Spout. On top of that, they are now forced to bring out their Torkoal, which will weaken their Kyogre even further. So now it's just a no-brainer. We can Thunderbolt into the Kyogre, and we can Moongeist Beam into the Torkoal. With its low special defense and our +1, that will always kill. They choose to protect Kyogre, but at this point, they're just kind of drawing out the game. Thunderbolt goes into that protect, and we get to see this very cool Moongeist Beam take out the Torkoal. Alright, that's a dead turtle. Once again, don't really have to think about it. Thunderbolt, Moongeist Beam. We have speed control, so both of our mons should go first, but our opponent forfeits here, and I think that's fair. Good game to them. Well, thanks for watching, everyone. As always, you can find the team's rental code at the beginning of the video, as well as in the description below, where you can also find the paste. Series 10 has a lot of room for innovation, so I should be able to get out 1 or 2 more videos before it's over at the end of next month. I hope you all look forward to the next one, so until next time.